I canceled my girlfriend's stay at a luxury resort that I paid for after she used my tickets to go with her friends instead of me. Hi Reddit, I'm Jason, 30M, and I've been dating Lisa, 28F, for 3 years. I've always been the kind of guy who puts 110% into the things I care about, and Lisa is no exception. So, when her birthday and our 3-year anniversary ended up being just a week apart, I knew I wanted to do something big, something she'd never forget. I spent a lot of time planning a 5-day trip to a luxury resort in Miami. This wasn't your run-of-the-mill getaway either. I booked the best suite, lined up fun activities, and even reserved us a private dinner on the beach. Every detail was planned to perfection because, well, I had one more thing in mind. I was going to propose. I'd been saving for this ring for nearly a year. It wasn't flashy, but it was classic and elegant, exactly her style. In my head, I pictured us walking along the shore at sunset, her saying yes, and me feeling like the luckiest guy alive. It felt like the right time. We've been talking about the future more often, and I wanted to take that next step with her. When I first told Lisa about the trip, she seemed genuinely excited. She kept saying how amazing Miami would be and joked about how she'd fill her Instagram with pictures of the beach, the food, and the sunsets. I'll admit, I was a little annoyed that her focus was more on Instagram than on the actual experience, but I brushed it off. That's just who Lisa is. She loves sharing her life online. But as the trip got closer, I noticed her excitement start to fade. At first, I didn't think much of it. Everyone has off days, right? But then it became a pattern. She started taking longer to respond to texts and barely answer my calls. Whenever I brought up the trip, she'd give vague answers like, yeah, it's going to be fun, or I can't wait, but without the same energy she had before. I tried to be understanding. Lisa had mentioned work had been stressful lately, and I figured that might be what was dragging her down. But at the same time, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I asked her if she was okay a couple of times. Is something bothering you about the trip? I'd say, every time, she'd shrug it off. No, everything's fine. You're overthinking, she'd reply, then change the subject. There was this one time, about 2 weeks before the trip, when I noticed her on her phone way more than usual. Normally, I wouldn't think twice about it because Lisa is practically glued to her phone, but she was being extra secretive. If I walked into the room, she'd quickly lock the screen or flip her phone face down. I even joked about it once, saying, "What? Planning a surprise for me?" She just laughed awkwardly and said something like that. I tried not to dwell on it, but my gut kept telling me something wasn't right. Maybe it was paranoia, or maybe it was the little things adding up. The weird vibe, the lack of enthusiasm, and the fact that she'd been spending more time with her best friend, Taylor, lately. Normally, I wouldn't care about that either. Taylor and Lisa have been friends forever, but I couldn't help noticing that Taylor always seemed to pop up whenever Lisa canceled plans with me. One night, about a week before the trip, Lisa said she had to work late. It wasn't unusual. She's a graphic designer and sometimes takes on freelance projects outside her full-time job. But then, when I checked Instagram later, I saw a story Taylor posted. They were out grabbing dinner together. I didn't say anything because I didn't want to come across as controlling or clingy, but it definitely made me wonder why she felt the need to lie. If she wanted to hang out with Taylor instead of me, she could have just said so. The night before the trip, I packed my bags and double-checked everything. Tickets, itinerary, and of course the ring. I was trying to stay optimistic despite the lingering doubt in the back of my mind. Lisa texted me around 10 p.m., saying she was super tired and going to bed early, so she could be ready for the flight in the morning. I told her to sleep well, and that I'd pick her up at 9 a.m. sharp. She replied with a thumbs-up emoji, which wasn't exactly the warm response I was hoping for, but I let it slide. As I went to bed that night, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to go wrong. I told myself I was just overthinking again. After all, this trip was going to be perfect. How could it not be? Little did I know, the next 24 hours would completely change how I saw Lisa, our relationship, and even myself. The morning of the trip started like any other. I woke up early, double-checked my bag, and mentally ran through everything I needed for the trip. That's when it hit me. My passport wasn't in my bag. I couldn't believe I'd forgotten something so basic, but it was no big deal. I remembered leaving it in my office drawer after using it for some work-related paperwork a few weeks earlier. I figured I'd swing by the office, grab the passport, and still make it to Lisa's place with plenty of time to get to the airport. I sent her a quick text letting her know I'd be at her place around 9:30 a.m. She didn't reply, but I didn't think much of it at the time. The office was unusually quiet that morning. As I walked toward my desk, I saw my assistant, Jenna, sorting through some files. "Morning, what are you doing here? Still not ready?" she asked, looking surprised to see me. I told her I was just there to grab my passport, but before I could, she cut me off. "Oh, by the way, your meeting with Juan Corp is in 10 minutes. Are you prepped for it?" I stopped in my tracks. "What meeting?" I asked, completely confused. Jenna tilted her head and frowned. "The one with Juan Corporation. It's been on your calendar all week. You confirmed it a few days ago." I pulled out my phone and checked my calendar. Sure enough, there it was blocked off as a meeting I had supposedly agreed to, but I hadn't confirmed anything. My stomach started to turn as I scrolled through the email chain to see what was going on. And that's when I saw it. The meeting invite had been sent to me earlier in the week, but it wasn't me who replied. Someone else had used my email to confirm the meeting. The reply read, "Jason will be there." Sounds great. And that someone was Lisa. At first, I just stood there, staring at my phone like it was going to give me an answer. Why would Lisa do this? Did she mess with my calendar by accident? Or was this deliberate? I wanted to think there was some logical explanation, but deep down, I already knew the truth. Lisa had set me up. This wasn't just bad timing. She knew I wouldn't be able to skip a meeting once it was on the calendar. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. She had planned this. Meanwhile, the clock was ticking, and I didn't have time to sort out my emotions. Jenna told me the WAN team was already in the conference room, waiting to discuss a potential deal. Skipping the meeting wasn't an option, not without damaging my reputation and possibly the company's relationship with one of our biggest clients. So I did what I had to do. I locked my emotions away, put on my professional face, and walked into that conference room like nothing was wrong. But the whole time my head was spinning. I couldn't stop replaying the past few weeks in my mind. Lisa had been acting strange for a while now, avoiding conversations about the trip, canceling plans, and spending more time with Taylor. I'd written it off as stress or work-related, but now it all felt calculated. As the meeting dragged on, I kept checking my phone, giving Lisa the benefit of the doubt. Maybe she would text me with some kind of explanation. But there was nothing. When the meeting finally ended, I rushed out of the room and back to my desk. My first instinct was to call Lisa, but before I could, something told me to check her Instagram. It felt ridiculous at first. Why would her Instagram have anything to do with this? But when I opened the app and saw her stories, my heart sank. There she was at the resort I had booked for us. She was lounging by the pool with Taylor, laughing and looking like she didn't have a care in the world. I kept watching and scrolling through her stories. One of them showed the suite I had booked, our suite. The same one I'd imagined us staying in, celebrating her birthday and our anniversary. And she wasn't alone. Taylor was there, of course, but so were a few guys I didn't recognize. They were all smiling, laughing, and posing for the camera like they were having the time of their lives. I tried calling her again, straight to voicemail. Then I texted her. What the hell is going on? Why are you at the resort without me? No response. I couldn't believe it. She had used my reservation, my money, to go on this trip without me. And not just without me, but with a group of people I didn't even know. I stared at her stories for what felt like an eternity, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. The Lisa in those videos wasn't the person I thought I knew. She wasn't the person I'd spent 3 years with, planning a future together. I felt sick. After piecing everything together, I couldn't hold back anymore. I called Lisa over and over again, each ring making me angrier. She wasn't answering, and honestly, I wasn't surprised. It felt like she was purposely dodging me, as if ignoring me would make this whole thing go away. But this morning, after about a dozen calls, she finally picked up. I didn't even let her start. What the hell is going on, Lisa? You sabotaged my morning so you could steal the trip? I could hear my voice shaking, a mix of anger and disbelief. Her response? Completely casual. Jason, I needed this trip to clear my head. You're always so uptight and focused on your plans. I just wanted to have fun for once. Clear head? Fun? My mind was racing. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Fun, Lisa? I planned this for us. This wasn't some random vacation. It was our anniversary and your birthday. I was going to propose. I let it all out because at this point, what was the point of holding back? And then she said the words that will probably stick with me forever. Well, maybe it's good you didn't. Honestly, you're kind of boring sometimes. I knew you just killed the vibe. Boring? Kill the vibe? It was like everything I thought I knew about our relationship was a lie. I had spent months planning this trip. Not just for her, but for us. I had poured my time, effort, and money into making this perfect, and she had the audacity to throw it back in my face. That was it. I was done. All right, Lisa, I said, keeping my voice as calm as I could. If you think I'm so boring, then you don't need my plans, my money, or my help. Enjoy the trip. You're on your own now. Before she could respond, I hung up. My hands were shaking as I dialed the resort. When I got through to the receptionist, I explained everything. How my girlfriend had checked in without me, how she wasn't authorized to use my reservation, and how she wasn't even supposed to be there alone. The receptionist was incredibly understanding and sympathetic. She said she'd do everything she could to help me. The first thing I asked was for the remaining days of the stay to be canceled. She informed me that because Lisa had already checked in, I couldn't get a full refund, but I could get back most of the money for the unused nights. I agreed immediately. Losing a little money was worth knowing she wouldn't get to enjoy the rest of her stolen vacation. Next, I canceled all the activities I had booked. The private dinner, the snorkeling trip, even the sunset sail I'd planned for the proposal. Each cancellation felt like taking back a small piece of control. Finally, I asked about the return flights. Since I had booked everything through the same travel agency, I was able to cancel her ticket. That one felt good. A few hours later, my phone started blowing up again. Lisa had finally noticed what I'd done. The messages started with anger. You're such a petty jerk. I can't believe you'd ruin my vacation like this. Then they turned to guilt tripping. Wow, I didn't think you were this immature. You really need to grow up? And finally, she started begging. Jason, please, I made a mistake. Just rebook the flight, and we can talk about this when I get home. I ignored every single one. She called me too, but I didn't pick up. I couldn't. I was too angry, too disgusted to hear her voice again. Lisa didn't just betray me. She had planned this betrayal. She had gone behind my back, ruined my schedule, and lied to me. Also, she could enjoy a luxury trip on my dime with her friend and some random guys. I wasn't just angry at her. I was angry at myself for not seeing it sooner. Later, I decided to block her. I didn't want to hear her excuses, her apologies, or her insults. I needed to focus on myself and figure out where to go from here. But before I did, I wrote her one final text. You wanted to clear your head and have fun? Go ahead. But don't expect me to clean up the mess you made. Find your own way home. Then I hit block. As I'm writing this, Lisa is still trying to contact me through every possible channel. She's using her friends' phones, emailing me, even messaging me on apps I forgot I had. The messages are a mix of anger and desperation. One minute she's calling me a child for canceling everything, and the next she's begging me to forgive her. I'll keep you guys updated on how all of this will end up. I would really appreciate any comment or piece of advice. Update 1. Hey everyone, I wanted to give you an update because things have escalated since my last post. First, I just want to say thanks for all the advice and support. A lot of you encouraged me to tell Lisa's parents what happened, and honestly, I wasn't sure at first. But after thinking about it, I realized they deserved to know the truth, especially since she'd probably reach out to them for help. I wanted to make sure everything was clear to them. Lisa's parents, let's call them the Thompsons, have always been good to me. Her mom would call me her future son-in-law and even joked about how she'd save a spot in the family photo album for me. Her dad was a bit more reserved, but we bonded over sports and DIY projects whenever we visited. They genuinely seemed to like me, and I liked them too. So I figured, why not let them in on what their daughter has been up to? I called her mom first. Hi, Mrs. Thompson. I hope I'm not catching you at a bad time. I started, trying to keep my tone calm and respectful. She immediately knew something was up. Jason, is everything okay? You sound serious. So I told her everything. I didn't hold back, and I made sure to emphasize how calculated Lisa's actions were. Her mom was quiet at first, but then she let out this deep sigh. Jason, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. Turns out, Lisa had lied to them too. She told her parents I couldn't go on the trip because of work issues and that she didn't want to let the tickets go to waste. Apparently, she painted herself as the victim of my supposed workaholism, saying she was using the trip to clear her head after being so neglected by me. Hearing that pissed me off even more. Not only did she betray me, but she tried to make herself look like the victim in front of her own family. Her mom apologized over and over, saying this was so unlike Lisa and that she couldn't believe her daughter would do something so selfish. That's when it hit me, Lisa wasn't just lying to me. She was lying to everyone. She didn't just manipulate my plans. She kept her own family in the dark too. Her mom asked me what I planned to do next, and I told her the truth. I've already canceled everything. The room, the activities, even her flight back. She's on her own now. Mrs. Thompson was quiet for a moment before saying, honestly, Jason, I don't blame you. She needs to grow up and deal with the mess she made. Her dad got on the phone next. Now, Mr. Thompson isn't the warm, chatty type like his wife. He's more of a straight shooter. When I told him what Lisa did, his first words were, that's ridiculous. She's 28, not 18. She knows better. Well, Jason, I can tell you this, we're not bailing her out. She made this mess, and she can clean it up herself. Hearing that was so satisfying. It felt like validation, not just for what I'd been through, but for the decision I made to cut her off. Later that day, Lisa must have realized her parents weren't coming to her rescue because the messages started pouring in again. At first, she was still trying to play the victim. Why are you telling my parents? That's so immature, Jason. This is between us. But then, when she realized her parents weren't going to send her money for a flight home, the tone shifted. Jason, please. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I just needed some space to figure things out. Jason, can we talk? I made a mistake, and I need your help. I'm sorry, okay? Just call me back so we can fix this. Fix this? I'm not the one who broke anything. She's the one who lied, schemed, and betrayed me. At one point, she even tried to guilt trip me. You're really going to leave me stranded here after 3 years together? That's so cold. Cold? Coming from the woman who had no problem sabotaging me and using my money to party with other guys. The audacity was unreal. I didn't respond to any of it. Not the guilt tripping, not the fake apologies, not the pathetic attempts to shift the blame onto me. Instead, I blocked her number. I wish I could say that was the end of it, but Lisa found other ways to reach me. She started emailing me, messaging me on social media, and even tried using Taylor's phone to call me. Speaking of Taylor, I'm not sure what her deal is. Part of me wants to believe she didn't know the full story, but at the same time, she had to know something was off. Either way, I'm not interested in hearing her excuses. As of now, Lisa is still stuck at the resort. Her parents refused to send her any money, and from what Mrs. Thompson told me, Lisa doesn't have enough in her own account to book a flight back. To everyone who said I should tell her parents, thank you. It felt so good to have their support and know that I wasn't crazy for being so angry about what happened. This whole situation has been a wake-up call for me. I spent 3 years with someone who clearly didn't value me, and I'm done making excuses for her. Lisa can stay in Miami and figure out how to get home on her own. Thanks again for all the advice and support. Let me know if you want more updates. Something tells me this isn't over yet. Update 2. Hey Reddit, I'm back with another update, and trust me, it's a wild one. Before I dive into the new mess I uncovered, I want to fill you in on what happened with Lisa after my last update. So after I canceled everything, her hotel stay, activities, and return flight, Lisa was stuck at the resort. Her parents refused to help her, and she didn't have enough money in her account to book a new flight home. I guess she spent most of it trying to keep up appearances while partying with her friends and those random guys. From what I've heard, thanks to mutual friends who couldn't resist spilling the details, Lisa spent a couple of days scrambling to figure out how to get back. She tried reaching out to Taylor for help, But even Taylor bailed on her at the last minute. It turns out Taylor isn't as loyal as Lisa thought. Apparently, she went back home early without even telling Lisa. Eventually, Lisa managed to borrow money from one of her friends who felt bad for her, but it didn't come without strings attached. The friend made her pay back every cent within a week of getting home, which put Lisa in an even worse spot financially. She's been pretty quiet on social media ever since. Anyway, after Lisa managed to slink back into town, I was still feeling like there was more to the story. Something about the guys in her Instagram stories kept bugging me. So I decided to dig a little deeper. That's when I came across Brandon. He was one of the guys at the resort, but I didn't recognize him as just some random dude. I knew I'd seen him somewhere before, and it hit me. He's her supervisor at work. His Instagram account was public, and as soon as I started scrolling, the pieces began to fall into place. Brandon had a lot of pictures with Lisa. Some were from work events, which could have been innocent enough, but others, not so much. There were pictures of them out for dinner, hiking together, and even at a rooftop bar. The captions weren't particularly romantic, but they didn't need to be. The body language said it all. Then there was a photo of Brandon, Lisa, and Taylor at a fancy restaurant. It was posted on the same night Taylor had put up a story saying girls' night. Remember that night I mentioned earlier when Lisa lied about working late and Taylor posted a dinner story? Turns out Brandon was there too. It was like every lie Lisa told me was unraveling in real time. I couldn't let it go, so I decided to message Brandon directly. I kept it short and to the point. Hey Brandon, I think we need to talk. Looks like we've both been seeing the same girl. To his credit, Brandon responded right away. At first, he seemed confused, but once I sent him screenshots of my text with Lisa and pictures of us together, his tone changed fast. He called me that same day, and we had a long conversation. Turns out Brandon had no idea Lisa was in a relationship. She told him she was single and wanted to take things slow because she was focusing on her career. Brandon admitted he'd been interested in her for a while, but hadn't made a move because, as her supervisor, he didn't want to cross any professional boundaries. Lisa, however, had been doing everything she could to blur those lines. Brandon shared some eye-opening details. He told me Lisa had been inviting him out for work brainstorming sessions, conveniently scheduling them at nice restaurants or coffee shops instead of the office. She'd casually drop hints about how hard it was to find someone who understood her and how much she admired his work ethic. One time, she even asked him to drive her home after a team event because she'd accidentally left her car at home. She spent the entire drive talking about how she felt stuck in her personal life and needed a change. Looking back, Brandon said he always felt like Lisa was pushing the boundaries, but he didn't think much of it at the time. He just let it happen until he found himself dating her. He wasn't planning on going to Miami with them, but she convinced him it would cause no harm since they would be in a group and there wouldn't be whispers about the two of them specifically. Now he realizes she was grooming him as her backup plan, or maybe her main plan, depending on how things went with me. As Brandon and I compared notes, everything started to make sense. The working late nights? She was probably with Brandon. The weekend she said she was too tired to hang out? That was the same weekend Brandon posted a picture of her and Taylor at brunch. The Vegas trip? Brandon had invited her as part of a company retreat, but Lisa made it seem like she was visiting her parents. Even Taylor was in on it. Every time Lisa needed a cover story, Taylor was there to back her up. It's like they had this whole scheme planned out and saw me as the idiot boyfriend who believed every word. Brandon was just as furious as I was. He said he felt betrayed and embarrassed, not just as her supervisor, but as someone who thought Lisa was genuinely interested in him. He even apologized to me, which was surprising but appreciated. We ended the call agreeing that Lisa needed to face the consequences of her lies. Brandon said he'd figure out how to handle things at work, but he also wanted to confront Lisa about everything. I told him I was all in, whatever it took to make sure she couldn't keep doing this to people. Since that call, Brandon and I have been in touch, sharing more details and planning our next steps. Lisa has no idea Brandon and I are talking, and honestly, I'm looking forward to seeing her reaction when the truth comes out. As for Taylor, I'm done with her too. She's just as guilty in all of this, and I have no interest in hearing her excuses. Lisa, of course, is still trying to reach me. She sent emails, messages from random numbers, and even tried leaving voicemails. Her latest excuse? Jason, I didn't mean for this to happen. Please, can we just talk? No, Lisa, we can't. I'll keep you all updated as things unfold. Thanks for sticking with me through this mess. It's been a wild ride, but at least I'm finally seeing the truth. Update 3. Hey Reddit, I'm back with the final update, hopefully, to this insane mess. Buckle up because this one's the most satisfying yet. After everything Lisa did, the lies, the manipulation, the double life, it was time for some real accountability. I teamed up with Brandon, her supervisor and secret side guy, to expose her for what she truly is. And it worked better than I could have hoped. Brandon and I planned our next move carefully. We didn't want to come across as vindictive or unhinged, so we decided the best way to confront Lisa was to hit her with the truth all at once. Brandon agreed to set up a meeting with Lisa under the guise of discussing work-related matters. Meanwhile, I would join the call as a surprise guest. When the meeting started, Lisa looked completely caught off guard. She stammered something like, "What's he doing here?" But before she could say anything else, Brandon and I laid everything out. I showed screenshots of our texts, pictures of us together, and even old anniversary posts to prove we were in a long-term relationship. Brandon shared his side of the story, how she'd been pursuing him at work, inviting him out under the guise of brainstorming sessions, and lying about being single. We both confronted her about the lies she told to cover her tracks, including how she used Taylor to help her scheme. At first, Lisa tried to deny everything. She kept saying, "This is a misunderstanding. You're blowing things out of proportion." But as we continued showing her more evidence, she broke down. "I didn't mean for it to happen like this," she cried. "I just felt stuck, and I didn't know what to do. I wasn't having it." "Stuck? You weren't stuck, Lisa. You were juggling two people who trusted you while lying to everyone around you. That's not being stuck, it's being selfish." Brandon was just as blunt. "Do you realize how many boundaries you crossed? You didn't just lie to me. You jeopardized my reputation at work. You made me look like an idiot." Lisa had no response. She just sat there crying and mumbling apologies. But by that point, neither of us cared. After the confrontation, Brandon took the matter to HR. He explained how Lisa had been pursuing him inappropriately and manipulating their professional relationship. To make things worse for her, other coworkers started coming forward with their own stories about Lisa's behavior. Apparently, Lisa wasn't exactly popular at work. She had a reputation for being fake and manipulative, but most people just stayed quiet to avoid drama. Once Brandon filed the report, though, it opened the floodgates. Within a week, Lisa was let go. The official reason? Violation of workplace policies. She tried to fight it, but the evidence against her was overwhelming. Getting fired was just the beginning of Lisa's downfall. Word spread quickly about what she'd done, and her friends started cutting ties with her one by one. Taylor, her so-called best friend, dropped her like a bad habit. From what I've heard, Taylor was more worried about protecting her own reputation than sticking by Lisa. Lisa's parents weren't any more sympathetic. After I told them everything and kept them updated later as well, they started seeing her true colors. Her mom called me a few days ago to apologize again for Lisa's behavior, saying, "I don't know where we went wrong with her." Even her dad, who rarely gets involved in personal drama, told Lisa she needed to fix her life and stop blaming other people for her mistakes. Lisa is completely isolated now. Her coworkers, or now ex-coworkers, don't want anything to do with her. Her friends have abandoned her, and her parents are fed up with her nonsense. As for me, I feel like a weight has been lifted off my shoulders. For 3 years, I thought I was building a future with someone who loved and respected me. Now I see how wrong I was, but instead of feeling bitter, I feel free. I've been focusing on myself, and it's been amazing. I booked a solo trip to Miami. Yes, the trip I should have been taking with Lisa, and it was everything I needed. Surfing, hiking, and just enjoying my own company made me realize how much I've been neglecting myself while trying to please someone who didn't deserve it. Brandon and I have stayed in touch. He's doing fine, though he admitted it's been awkward dealing with the fallout at work. He told me he's using this experience as a reminder to keep stricter boundaries in the future. Honestly, I respect the guy. He was just as much a victim of Lisa's manipulation as I was. Even after everything, Lisa hasn't stopped trying to contact me. She's been emailing me, messaging me from random accounts, and even showed up at my apartment once. When I saw her at my door, I didn't even let her in. I stepped outside and told her to leave. She started crying and saying she was sorry for everything and that she just wanted to talk. "Lisa, I don't think you understand," I said. "There's nothing left to talk about. You lied, you cheated, and you manipulated everyone around you. I don't care what your excuses are. You made your choices, and now you have to live with the consequences." She begged me to forgive her, saying she'd change and make things right, but I wasn't buying it. "This isn't about forgiveness, Lisa. It's about respect, and you've lost all of mine." With that, I walked back inside and shut the door. Thanks to everyone who followed this journey and offered advice and support. It's been quite a mess, but I'm glad I finally saw Lisa for who she really is. Here's to new beginnings.